Well, hello everyone, and here we are. Sylvia, we made it to another episode of Your Next 50,
We
where we are
did.
here to tell you it's your time. And we want you, Sylvia and I both want you to be intentional with your choices, to not waste even one more day hiding in our stories so that we can reclaim our personal power and be happy while doing it. And this is the podcast to do it. And I am Jenny.
And I am Sylvia. Welcome. Jenny, I was looking at the past episodes and I wonder what's going on in our own lives because every episode starts with who chose this? Who chose this subject? And I was noticing how some people might perceive them to be heavy,
Mm,
and they can be, but I think we bring lightness to it. We bring stories, and
humor.
you're probably wondering what today's episode is going to be about. But
Yeah. So releasing the self-judgment, Sylvia and I have been having this ongoing dialogue about this. Well, for me, though, I don't want to go first, this element of debilitating self-doubt. And I want to sort of shed some light on it's like it's like I'm sorry, I'm gonna go there. It's like toe fungus. It's like it
oh,
it
Jenny.
keeps no, just wait, come with me. It's like it keeps growing and growing and festering when it stays in the dark. But when you open it up, when you air it out and you start talking about it, it doesn't hold the same power. So lately, the theme in my life has been these incredibly powerful, influential women speaking about debilitating self doubt. And
Yeah.
myself personally, just in like the height of like this expansion in my business, there's so many cool things going on. I've just written a Chavender org chart and all this amazing stuff. And yet, I can be racked with debilitating, paralyzing self doubt. Who am I to
Hmm.
do this? What is it about this that I care about? Why would anybody buy X, Y, and Z? And I'm really trying to reconcile this and have a new relationship with that voice of self doubt. We've talked about how that voice keeps us safe. And so we want to shift it a little bit today to talk about that self judgment piece. And
Hmm.
at this point, I want to put a powerful plug in for our sponsor, Loretto Chain, who writes those amazing cards. And
Yes.
yes, I have purchased a set of her cards, which says, comparison is the thief of joy. So that is the setup for this week's conversation.
Yeah, we went to guilt and shame a couple weeks ago, and now here we're talking about judgment. I can fall into that trap, and I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that you are going through something like this. And honestly, with the amount of women we work with, and know at all stages of life, and particularly midlife women,
Mm-hmm.
they've all shared that they've felt this way at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's actresses in Hollywood, high powered level business women. They have, mothers, everyone has had this self judgment. And in our last workshop, because we do workshops twice a year, we did a workshop on the inner critic. That was my part of it. And it really relates to this, right? That little voice in our head that just tells us,
Mm-hmm.
who the fuck are you, excuse my language, to be doing this? And that self-judgment for me this morning, I did not work out as my usual routine. I have a little bit of a cold. I said, let me just sit and I'll look at my Instagram and Facebook. Well,
Mm-mm.
an hour later, Jenny, I literally stayed on one person's profile, a very well-known coach, business coach, and I delved in and got sucked right in. And you must know how after that, I was like, oh my God, why did I just do that? And
Right.
then all the doubt started coming in. Ah, to be a big time coach now, I'm going to have to wear scanty lingerie, or I'm going to have Botox, or I'm
Mm.
going to have to
Buy a
all of these
whole new
things.
wardrobe.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, I need to be doing this, and I'm not doing it. Oh my gosh,
Mm.
I was
Mm.
not in a good place. And I said, oh, you know what? This is just a setup for today's show because that is what we're talking about. And I know you have all scrolled on Instagram or whatever, TikTok,
Yeah.
and then come back feeling not so good about yourself and
Yeah.
all those shoulds.
Well, I'm going
Mm.
to shift it. So you talk about the visuals. For me, it's the academia and the credential piece that throws me off.
Mm.
So I work with a lot of women who say, well, oh my God, there's this so and so new person joining this new team, and oh my gosh, their resume is so amazing. And just a reminder, I always ask the question, so you're comparing, but wouldn't you agree that your journey is completely unique to you? And how could that person possibly relate to your experience? And how can you possibly relate to theirs? And it starts early. My daughter's about to graduate from high school, and you see the accolades that these young ladies have, and
Mm.
the titles and the scholarships and the whatever, and you start to believe that that's the real deal, man. And who am I? I'm just doing X, Y, and Z. But I think one of the challenges here is that we are seeing things from an external lens
Yes.
versus an internal lens. So I remember one of my favorite sessions of my executive coaching program was about how the journey goes from external, which is what we see, to internal, which is what do we believe. And so if we are truly on our path, this is the positive part of the episode. If you've listened this long, okay, 6 minutes, we made it to positive. If you truly believe and enjoy and are grounded in what you're doing, what you're earning, and the activities you're doing to make that money happen, you are fulfilled. If you don't know where you're going, if you're not clear on your goals, if you're not sure why you're doing something or haven't spent the time to understand your values, then yeah, I can see why you'd be looking externally for something else to fulfill you.
Which is such a good segue into my life these days because, as some of you know, I released my first business about a month ago, and I was waiting for the angels to sing and hallelujah, and I'm giving space to, to fill up my life with everything else that I want. But there has
Mm,
been that lack of clarity, and it's so
mm,
funny because we can coach ourselves. I coach myself all day long, that lack of clarity. Okay, Sylvia, well, you teach women to write their
mhm,
next chapter,
mhm,
be intentional. And
mhm.
then here I have been in the little bit of the messy middle, right? In that tunnel. I can see the light, but what is it that I want to create? Who am I to create this? Oh my gosh, how do I go from A to B? And
Yep.
I know a lot of people listening can relate to this because this is the work that we all do no matter what level we're at, right?
Don't you find it interesting that black and white thinking too?
Mhm.
Like I'm either amazing or I'm terrible. I don't
And
ever seem to do 60%.
within an hour, like yesterday, I was like on a high all day, and then within a half an hour, like at the end of the day, I was like, oh, had this black cloud over me. It's like the woman I don't know if you've seen Encanto, but she's, all of a sudden has this black cloud over her and it's raining. I was like, that is me. That
Yeah,
is me.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. No,
yes,
not too much gray. It's either
yeah.
I'm really
No,
doing really, really well. I've got clarity.
yeah,
And it's so funny that the next day, then you can have no clarity and that you
yeah.
feel that it's a spiral. It is
Mm,
really that spiral. And I think we can spiral in all different aspects of our life,
mhm.
no
Well,
matter
hold
if it's
on. And
yeah,
we can spiral down, or
yes.
we can spiral up, right?
Mhm.
And this
Yes.
is where I have to throw in my favorite quote: your thoughts are creative, right? So what you believe manifests itself. It happens. I have this thing where if I'm feeling a little dark, I sometimes will just make sure I check the weather, because honestly, I have more trouble on rainy days, and I just have to temper my expectations, right?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
it's raining today. Like yesterday, it was sunny. I could do no wrong. I was dancing, unicorns, like you name it, it was happening.
Yeah.
And so having that kind of little bit of compassion for myself. Um,
Well, also, Jenny, this past, Sunday, it was a full moon
oh,
and it was an eclipse. It was the blood moon, and, in some of my groups, we'll just blame it on that because
perfect.
and the dreams have been very vivid, and there are these energies playing around us that, depending what meaning you wanna give to that, but sometimes
Mhm.
there are these little external forces. Yes, the weather, like yesterday was a great, beautiful day, and I wasn't judging myself as mu as
Yeah,
much as
yeah,
this morning. Um, but yeah, that social media piece, and I think we've touched upon that before,
yep.
but how that can lead to debilitating actions and the freezing, right? When we're
That's
judging
exactly it.
ourselves so much. If you've
Yeah.
got that inner critic, there's a book, she wrote it a few years ago called Help Me. And every chapter is a different self help book that she goes through because she was just having this debilitating
Mm,
self self-judgment talk, the
Mhm.
inner critic talk.
Mhm.
And like she noted how many times a day, and I think she got up to 18,000 negative messages in one
Mhm.
day. And I mean, if we're feeding
Mhm.
ourselves, no matter
Mhm.
her body, her clothes, her friends, which, her car, her work, like all day long,
Mhm.
that we need to pattern interrupt, as I like to say. We
Yeah,
need
it's great
to,
language.
that awareness, just that awareness piece.
I have some clients who are incredible achievers, incredibly, I think the word honorable leaders
Mhm.
that comes to mind, and yet are debilitated to post on LinkedIn.
Huh.
So I think it's interesting, this fight or flight or freeze, which is another one we don't talk as much about. So the fight we sort of characterize as the attack, right? You're wrong,
Mhm.
post it on social media. Flight is just to remove yourself and disengage. But freeze is this place in the middle, which I can relate to, where it's like, do I do something? Do I not? Should I? I don't like this. I'm not sure if I should do this. What would I say if I even said something, right? And
But
you
you
just
already wrote it in your mind too. You've
burn.
written the whole post in your mind already, but, "Oh, I'm not gonna should I post it?
Well,
Should I?"
you
But
said that
imagine
this
the
just before our coaching call. You said exactly that. You had the post completely did that freeze moment, right?
yeah.
Sometimes I liken it to, and I'm not saying post whatever you want on LinkedIn. That's not really my message here. But when you're standing at the end of the dock and the water's cold,
Oh,
and the longer you think about how cold the water is and analyze, is it colder than yesterday or whatever, you're paralyzed. But if you literally go to the end of the dock and tune out your brain and just jump, it's okay, right? You
okay,
you
do you
get
do
through
that,
it.
Jenny? I sit at the dock, and then I put my toes in, and then my ankles, and then I go all the way up, and it's an hour later, time to go home.
Well, and I know I love the feeling of a lake on my skin. I grew up in
Mm,
lakes, and it's just such a powerful, oh gosh, I could just think about it now, probably because I'm a Pisces. And I actually learned this from my husband because they had a pool and he just jumps in. I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much
just
more
jumps in.
sense.
My kid, yeah, my I have a
Just
couple of kids,
jump.
just jump without thinking of it.
So is that a way,
Ah,
I want to bring this back, is
yeah,
that
bring
a
it back.
way to circumvent the inner critic? Is just do something? Is that a solution? I'm just asking the question.
Well, it's one of them. I like to go with the work, the awareness piece, where
Mm,
what is triggering? Like for me this morning, this person triggered me. I mean, triggers are our best teachers, so I will
yeah.
go and analyze that later. But why did I get sucked into this? What
Mm,
feelings were what was coming up for me? And we talk about the inner critic and naming her, right? Giving her a personality.
Phyllis?
And yours is Phyllis, mine is Dolores, and seeing them as their own entity, would part of us as well. And I mean, not to then we don't want to go bash the inner critic. I think they are serving their purpose. That reptilian brain trying to keep you safe, not wanting to. They show up in times of when, like you
Yeah.
said, you're at this place where you want to up level, you
Yeah.
want to grow. I'm at this place, new opportunity, new chapter. Sylvia, how dare you write a new chapter? What is
Mhm.
that going to look? So that reptilian brain is just trying to keep us safe.
So that's interesting. So could we reframe this, that if you're feeling like in my situation, this self-doubt, this self-judgment, that actually it's a signal of what's coming, right? It's a
Mm,
signal that things are changing in your life and there's shifts going on. Now, here's the kicker. Not everybody is going to like that in your world,
so
and you're
true.
gonna have to let go of that, right? You've always been the one that organized the trip and you don't want to do that anymore. You've always been the one that picked up the pieces on the XYZ and you don't want to do that anymore. That's a really interesting observation. There was this week I did a presentation for AFP Ottawa here in Ottawa, and there was this fantastic quote that my colleague Eli included in our presentation. It was a story, it's worth repeating, from Warren Buffett. And a pilot asked him, "Hey, Warren, how can I be as successful as possible in this world?" And Warren Buffett's advice was, this multi-billionaire was, write down all the things you want to do and then cross off half of them.
Mm,
I thought that was so interesting. In other words, you really have to make these decisions for yourself and you have to get clear on what you want to
those
do, those
priorities. Yeah.
priorities, which I
Which
think
ones?
that self doubt and self judgment comes to us trying to do everything too, right?
Well, and the fact that we think we should be able to do everything, and that comes up. I think we've talked a lot about that in our parenting skills. That guilt that comes up, like why?
Mm,
But
mhm,
that is a great story. Yeah. What are our priorities?
mm,
Knowing that we can't do everything.
mm.
Um, yeah,
You're
I like
you're
to put my Dolores in a timeout sometimes too, and whether that's just go for a walk, get out, like you said, you
yeah,
look at the weather, okay, is it great? What's going on? Maybe go read a book, maybe talk to a good friend,
mm.
just get yourself out of that spiral. Again, when we're talking pattern interrupts.
Pattern
Uh,
interrupt. Let's
yeah.
remember that language because
Mhm.
pattern interrupt for me sometimes is just changing desks,
Yeah,
going to see someone else, touching base with someone. I completely agree. That's a takeaway
just
for
move,
sure.
put a song on, dance, think, whatever it is, just change the air,
Yeah,
open a window, declutter something, clean your
yeah,
desk or whatever it
yeah,
is. Just change the energy,
yeah.
right? It's that, yeah.
Yeah. So the pattern interrupt. I want to talk about like the black and white thinking,
Mhm.
just tempering the black and white thinking. So is this really true? That was something one of my coach said
Mm.
recently. I was like, oh yeah, that's a great way. Is this true? Is this really true? So the tempering of the extremes is another great sort of tool that we can use.
Well, yeah, when we want to get into victimhood, it's like a client could say, "Oh, this launch didn't work at all. It's not working. It's not working." And like, well, okay, well let's walk through what you did.
Mm.
And then they say, "Oh, okay, I know I did sell a few things." I'm like, "Oh, okay, there are successes, right?" So looking at what we are not utter failures, Jenny. If we look at ourselves and we both have self-doubt at moments, people looking out at us
Mm,
would perhaps be surprised at that.
mm.
And but no, there are successes.
So that's 3. Number
Mm,
3 is compare yourself to yourself 3 months ago, 6 months ago to
yeah.
remind yourself of how far you've come. And that, Chavender Club has this. I know you do this a lot in your groups too. Like, what's the win from the week?
Yeah.
Reminding ourselves of the win. I just emptied out my planner. So I have like a 6-month planner that was a beautiful gift from someone. And I took out the first 2 months of it and I couldn't believe how much I got done in those 2 months. Because I had to take it out to put the new months in,
Okay.
and I was stunned. And I thought, we really need to take time every quarter,
But we
just
downplay it, don't
yeah,
we?
we
Because
do.
it becomes our new normal.
Yeah,
It's like if
yeah,
you've been wanting to do that podcast forever and ever and
yeah,
ever, and you're resisting and
yeah.
just, you are freezing up, and then you finally get it done and you start going forward,
Then
and
you
then it just
underplay.
then you underplay it. It's like, oh, it's no big deal,
Yeah. I used to
right?
do that with my credentials all the time. I have a
Mm,
doctorate in piano. Like, I would almost not mention it, or I'd feel like it wasn't relevant to the work I was doing right now. And, now I flipped it, probably because I'm over 50, where I'm like, I am so proud of that degree. Like, I can't believe I stayed in school till 30. I was really good at school and I had a blast. Like, and it taught me so much. And I really, it's interesting how we downplay our own accomplishments and yet we elevate others.
Yeah, and it's part of who you are. And
Yeah.
if people are attracted to us by our energy, it
Mm,
really is part of who you are. So why hide that? And it opens up conversations, right? Because you might say that to someone and, oh, my kids are in piano, and it just opens up and they
mhm.
feel that so they're not attaching, or
Let it
grabbing
go.
on to your coaching piece. They're grabbing on to the
Me?
music piece, you as the musician,
Yeah.
right? So, and
So
that's super important as we go forward.
and that's the thing about self-judgment is you're not
Mhm.
putting your whole self out there. You are
Mhm.
hoarding pieces of your personality, your style, your beingness. You're not sharing them generously with the world. Who knows if that person that you run into is going to need what you're looking for. And that's what self-doubt does. It robs you of your you-ness. Whoa, that could be a t-shirt. It robs you of your you-ness.
Eunice. Yeah, and it gets me thinking, and you've told me this just before the show, is like everyone can have their own style, right? So
Mm,
I got judged, like, do I have to wear that
mm,
lingerie and have the champagne glass at 7 in the morning and do
mm,
a reel on Instagram? No, I don't.
mhm.
Does Amy Porterfield do that? No, and she runs a super
Yeah.
multi-million dollar business. So who I think we do need those
Models,
models as we're moving
mentors.
forward. And who are those people? And I think to choose wisely
Mm.
is important, because though I am interested in the triggers as well. I think they're,
But, you know,
as our
yeah.
teachers.
You are such a grounded in values person, though. So my sense is that you would choose someone. What if it was like a stock graph? I've been doing all sorts of financial investing. So, like, there's this graph, right? And really, what you're tracking is your progress on the graph. And yeah, if there's somebody else that's further up the mountain or whatever than you are, there's always gonna be. Like, that's the
Oh,
other part.
yeah.
Let go. It's not like, just let it go and again, enjoy the journey, which you've heard us say before. I talk a lot about
Mm.
mindset, how if we thought of, rather than focusing on arriving at the place, that we enjoyed the journey along the way. I had this wonderful moment with a coaching client recently who was talking about, we were describing her capital campaign, and she was like, I just want to get to New York on the train. And I was like, no, 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 no. You got to enjoy the scenery on the train. You've got to experience the train and the journey and the people and the volunteers on the train. And she's like, yeah, but my ticket's paid for and I want to get there. I'm like, I know, but it's going to be so much more rewarding when you get there if you have the joy along the way. So in
I
my world, you like that?
I do like that. And last year we had a road trip with the kids. I think it was a 10-day road trip. And I just kept talking about the experience of the road trip. And then I got so many eye rolling by
Yep.
the eyes were rolling by day 2. I think mom and her freaking experience. And I was like, but it is that. Because, the kids in a road trip, when are we there? When are we there? And I was like, this is it. This is what we're doing. We're just driving and looking. But it's so true. So
And
true
that
for our lives.
self-judgment is that piece of, look how much, so it's like the antibiotics to the self-judgment, because it's like, well, I'm further ahead than I was, right? It's that constant reminders of those minimal improvements, those constant improvements on things. If yesterday
Mm.
didn't go the way you wanted it to, what can you do today, small scale, to improve on it, versus those big goals that we have for ourselves and for our families and all those.
I think a lot of people feel stuck though, and
Yeah.
those audacious goals that they put or that we
Yeah.
put in sometimes feel so
Far.
far off. And I think that's where
Yeah.
the exercise of breaking down your audacious goals so
Mm,
that we are stepping
yeah.
smaller steps, but moving forward,
Yeah.
and seeing this time as an opportunity, like what is next. And like love what you said about, we can rewrite tomorrow,
Mm.
right? We really can, but do we have the balls to do it?
Ooh,
Like,
quote worthy.
yeah,
That's
be,
going on the quote reel.
because I think we often, if you look at every day for the
Yeah.
past years, we do life the same almost every day. There will be some differences, of course, because we are moving. But I think to make these, in the coaching world, again, a lot of
Mm.
quantum leaping these days.
Yeah.
Everyone's quantum leaping, and most people don't know what that is, but making big
Yeah.
changes, right?
Yeah.
But that needs, I think, some bolder moves.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that is where the judgment, who am I to make a bolder move? Who
Yeah.
am I to want that, to do this?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So many good things. Okay, so let's just encapsulate takeaways. I hope I can do this with my brain fog. Number one is interrupt the patterns.
Yeah.
Number two, we talked about asking yourself, is that true? Right? Just checking in.
Mm,
Being mindful of the black and white thinking and catching it when you see it happening.
yeah.
Celebrating the small achievements, tracking yourself like a stock graph against your person from 3 months ago. I love that one. I'm a very visual. I think I talk in metaphors. It's just like, that's, to me, is like exactly what I'm looking for. Is, am
Yes,
I better
the
than I was
metaphors
last
of
year?
toe fungus and jumping in the lake today.
It's one of those days. So many great takeaways. Now, listen, this is the chance for our
Mm,
listeners. If something resonated here with you, if there was something you went, yeah, that's the analogy I've been looking for, send us a note. You can always find us all in the show notes, or all of our contact information, and we'd love to hear from you as we move through this moon of dark topics on the podcast. Where are we going to end up at the end?
yeah.
And you can be part of that conversation with us, and we'd really welcome your feedback. So that's an invitation to all of our listeners.
Yeah, let us know. I believe what so I'm finishing it up there. I don't know if you wanted to. I'm transitioning into what's happening
Yep.
next week.
What's next? So I think if it's not this week, it's the next week. I am really excited about having Sherry Graydon on the
Yeah.
podcast. She is the, I guess you call her the founder of Informed Opinions. And en français, c'est les femmes experts. We're going to be talking to her. And I've just listened to a wonderful podcast between BBG, who was a guest on our show about
Yes.
imposter syndrome, and Sherry, which it was an interview I really enjoyed. So really looking forward to diving in with Sherry about some of the patterns that hold women back and how we can, her platform is the media, how women are really only quoted in the media about 30% of the time. That's
Wow.
up from 24% 10 years
Okay.
ago.
Let's
Um,
celebrate.
let's
Celebrate
celebrate.
6%.
Yeah, but I mean, and once you get
Yeah.
into, marginalized women, women with intersectionality that might be Black, Asian, or whatever, the numbers just drop like crazy. So I'm really looking forward to talking with her about that and her personal commitment to make it happen. So stay
Mm.
tuned. That's coming up soon. And without any further ado, Sylvia, I guess we say goodbye to our
Yeah, we say
neighbors
goodbye.
and
Thank
our
you for
followers.
listening. Again, Jenny invited you. Send us some topics. We'd
Yep.
love to discuss whatever is on your mind. And please, 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 and thank you for all of the lovely reviews of the podcast. You can catch us on Instagram, on Facebook,
Yeah.
and at your next 50 podcast at gmail.com.
And maybe this is the podcast episode that's the perfect forward for a girlfriend who's going through a dark time, to remind them that we're not alone. There are all of us out there striving and improving, and there's a place for everyone in this world on their own stock market chart.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.